Howdy. Howdy. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Mark Welch, and I'm the Dean of the Bush School of Government and Public Service here at Texas A&M, and probably the luckiest guy on earth to be in this job. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you all here tonight to an event that we really look forward to every year. Because we have the opportunity to recognize not just a great business leader, but a great citizen and a great public servant. And the names that have received this award over time are all in that category. All of them inspired us, our students, and our communities. And tonight we are just staying right on that same track. So this is an exciting event. I am not going to introduce the principals of this evening's event. I'll let Dr. Lori Taylor, who is our host this evening, do that in just a second. But I would like to mention that there are a number of other very distinguished people in the audience tonight. And we can start in your row, whichever is your row, because it's great to have all of you here. Thank you for being here to represent your communities, your colleges, your demographic, your whatever. It's a big world and we're all part of it. If we don't play our roles right, then everything's in trouble. So it's a thrill to have you here with us. We do have former president of this great university, Dr. Ray Bowen, and his wife Ann here in the front row. Thank you. We also have somebody that believes to be my partner in crime here at the Bush Center, the president and CEO of the Bush Library Foundation, Mr. David Jones is here with us. David, thank you. Down far in the front row is another partner in crime, Dr. Bob Holzweiss from the Library and Museum. Bob, thank you. The guy who greases all the wheels, Texas A&M, the president and CEO of the Texas A&M Foundation, Mr. Tyson Hope. Tyson, thank you. We also have in the auditorium tonight community leaders, members of our board of advisors to the Bush School and of the library, members of our development council. We have leaders from the university, leaders from various colleges around the university, and of course we have the leadership of the Bush School here. Will all the Bush School faculty or staff raise your hand and just let everybody know where you're sitting? We have a great If you're a student at the Bush School or at Texas A&M University, stand up for just a second, would you? There you go. Thank you for being here. I think you'll find that our special honoree tonight is all about making sure that you have opportunities in the future and challenging you to make the best of yourself. Let me introduce our department head for Public Service and Administration at the Bush School, also the director of our Mosbacher Institute, a great economist, a tremendous faculty member and scholar, and just a great lady, Dr. Lori Taylor.
Never gets old. I'm very pleased to have you all here with us this evening. We're very excited to be able to present to you the 2018 version of the McLane Leadership in Business Award. This award is something that's established by Drayton McLane Jr., chairman of the McLane Group, which is a diversified collection of businesses, a noted entrepreneur, business leader, and philanthropist. He established the McLane Leadership in Business Award specifically to recognize the role that the business community plays in public service. And so we are very pleased and grateful for his support for the Bush School, for the Mosbacher Institute, and for this award. And thrilled that Drayton McLane III will be here and able to help us with the presentation. Mr. McLane Jr., unfortunately, is human and is recovering from recent surgery. And so he sends his best wishes he were here, and has left us with a wonderful opportunity to share his vision of the role of government in public service. And an exemplar of that vision of the role of government in public service is Jim Mattress Mack McIngvale, a Texas-grown phenomenon who knows how to save you money today. So over the years, Mr. McIngvale started Gallery Furniture in 1981, and with $5,000 and a dream, and his dream has grown into 3 stores that currently sell the most furniture and mattresses in the country per square foot. So an enormous accomplishment in the business arena. Over the years, he's received countless awards for his work in philanthropy, most notably the Volunteer Service Points of Light Award, awarded personally by former President George H.W. Bush. His strong work ethic is matched by his philanthropy and exceeded only by the commitment to his family. His past charitable contributions include opening his heart and showrooms to hundreds of people displaced by Hurricane Harvey, offering more than 30 years of annual Christmas giveaways, furnishing the homes of needy families, furnishing USO facilities, providing those lovely chairs in the lounge out front here so that you enjoy the reception and you sat in his chairs, so thank you very much. Furnishing the Bush Library, supporting St. Louis Mobile Stroke Unit and the Salvation Army. Mr. McIngvale's support for the Salvation Army went above and beyond the call when in 2007 he sweet-talked George and Barbara Bush into volunteering as bell ringers during the campaign for the Salvation Army in front of the store. So, it's kind of a twofer or maybe a threefer there, an inspiration to us all. In 2017, Mr. McIngvale ran a promotion through Gallery Furniture that would refund customers if they spent more than $3,000 on mattresses in his stores if the Astros won the 2017 World Series. This guy is a lucky charm. Threw out the first pitch at Game 6 of the World Series in Los Angeles. Threw out the first pitch for Game 1 of the ALDS and flew 98 fans out to Game 6 of the World Series in Los Angeles, including first responders from Hurricane Harvey. He offered to refund folks money if the Astros won the World Series, and then he gladly paid up. So it was a wonderful gesture, something that the Astros have really recognized. I'm told that he has some of the world's best bling, including a World Series ring bestowed upon him by the Astros. I can't compete with that, but I can be very, very grateful for his presence, and I'd appreciate it if you help me welcome Jim McIngvale to the stage.
Thank you, Laura, for the very kind introduction. I'm honored and thrilled beyond words to be here tonight at Texas A&M University, one of my favorite happy places on earth. And I'm sorry I didn't wear my Astros ring. I left it at the store because it sells a lot of furniture. First and foremost, I am a huckster. I thought I would come tonight and tell you a story. It was August 24th, 2017, and I was at Gallery Furniture North Freeway. We were preparing for the arrival of one Hurricane Harvey. And about 12 of us decided to sleep at that furniture store there that night, expecting the worst. So I snuck into the mattress area. I slept on the Tempur-Pedic, and I must admit I slept very well. I woke up Saturday morning and there was 4 feet of water in the feeder road, and so we had to close the store. And over the 38 years we've been open, other than Saturday being Christmas Day, we've never closed the store on Saturday. So to me, a day without cash flow is worse than a day without oxygen. To say I was nervous and distressed that Saturday would be quite an understatement. But anyway, about 4 o'clock, at least on the north side of Houston, the sun came out, the sky was blue, and I drove around the feeder road. The water had receded, and there were several retailers, grocery stores open. So we opened the store. We sold a few sofas and mattresses that night, and I thought the worst of Hurricane Harvey was over. I went to my home, which is over in Midtown Houston by the Galleria store. Went to sleep that Saturday night, and I knew it was raining very hard all night Saturday night. I thought the worst was over. I got up Saturday morning. My house was okay, no water in it. I got my little black truck to drive to church about 8:30 that Sunday morning, and there was 4 feet of water in the street in front of my house, so I said, that's not going to work.
went back in the house, and finally about 11 o'clock, I'm a very impetuous person, and I said, I gotta go. So I got in the truck and drove down to San Felipe, which is one of the main streets in Houston. And I'm driving through all this water, and there's this lady, this BMW, and all these big trucks keep passing her and throwing water into her car. So she frantically waves me down and has me push her car up on the median. My tailpipes went underneath the water, and the car should have stopped right then, my truck, but it didn't. Otherwise, the story would have never been told. I pushed her up on the median, she waved, thanked me, and I went on. I went to Post Oak in Westheimer, which is the main shopping district in all of Houston. Both of those roads were terribly flooded, but our store there is on an elevated parking lot. The store was okay. And now it's about 11 o'clock, and I get 11:30. I get on 610, one of the main thoroughfares in Houston, to go to Gallery Furniture North Freeway. I go over the first overpass, and the cars are coming the other way on the freeway. That's when you know that there's a real problem that the game is on. So I got close to Gallery Furniture North Freeway. I called Jeremy, our warehouse guy manager, who'd been there all night, 2 nights in a row. I said, how do I get there? He said, the feeder road is totally flooded. Don't get off the exit ramp, get off the entrance ramp, come the wrong way in the feeder road, you might get there. And I got there at noon. And the phone was ringing off the wall. The emails were exploding, and the text messages were going ding, 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 nonstop for 3 hours. And the people were saying, come rescue us, we're going to drown. It wasn't that the firemen and the policemen and the EMTs had done a poor job. It wasn't they had done a magnificent job. It also was that this was truly a flood of biblical proportions. We've done a good job preparing for this hurricane. We rented about 24 of these Penske trucks, 26-foot beds on them, great, really high cabs that could get through a lot of water. We thought we were prepared. What we weren't prepared for was the fact that none of our drivers could get to work. They were all flooded in also. And I had to get the message out that we wanted to have people with commercial driver's licenses come in and take these trucks to go rescue people and bring them to the Gallery Furniture North Freeway store and Gallery Furniture store in Richmond, Texas, west of Houston, for shelters for people and their families and their pets from the storm. But we didn't have any way to communicate that. So I called my son James, who's a digital guru, and he was stuck in Dallas with his wife and 3 children. I said, James, how do I get the message out that we're going to open these stores and we need people with CDLs to come and drive these trucks to go pick people up? He said, Dad, you got to do a Facebook Live. I said, boy, I'm 67 years old. I never done a Facebook Live. So he coached me through a Facebook Live in an hour and a half, had 3.5 million views.
Wow.
And the people waded up the street, through the dirty sewer water, and they came in. And they walked in with this shell-shocked look on their face and a black plastic trash bag with their life's belongings. We got people to come in and they showed us their driver's license and we paired them up, 2 people to a truck, and they took off to rescue people. We have a sign in front of Gallery Furniture that says the American West was not settled by men and women who had taken a course on how to be a pioneer. Sometimes you got to lead, sometimes you got to do it. So they went out there and they rescued the people on overpasses in the driving rain, and they rescued them in convenience stores where they had taken shelter from the storms. And they rescued the neighborhoods when the Cajun Navy brought them to the end of the neighborhood and put them in the back of the truck. We brought them to that furniture store in the back of those trucks, 8, 10, 12 at a time. We had to load them in the back of the truck like cattle. There was no other way to do it. And they all came in with that shell-shocked look on their face. This went on all day long, and then by 8 o'clock I got a call from these people out at I-10 in Wallaceville, where the Northeast Houston Police Station, all 50 officers were out patrolling, and all 50 of their personal cars were totally submerged in water. And I got a call, and it was flooding very bad out there, so these 2 brothers brought in 2 truckloads of people, and I sent them out to get these people to I-10 in Wallaceville. I hadn't heard from them. About 10 o'clock at night, I get a call from this lady. She said, I was talking to my husband, he's in the back of one of your trucks at I-10 in Wallaceville with many other people, and then all of a sudden everybody started screaming because water's coming in the back of the truck. And she said, I can't get a hold of him, I don't know what's happened to him. So I frantically tried to call those two brothers, they wouldn't answer the phone, and I'm thinking, my God, we've drowned 10 people. So the only people we had left to send out to rescue these people was our receiving manager named Anthony. He's about 6'8" tall. And this other kid named Junior who's worked for us since he was 8 years old. He's about 4'9" tall. They were like the odd couple. So we sent them out at 10 o'clock. We knew where the truck was and the GPS couldn't talk to anybody. We sent them out at 10 o'clock to get to this place. Normally it takes 30 minutes to get there, but as they looked on Google Maps, all the roads were black or red, which means impassable. So they finally tried to exit off I-10 in Wallaceville, and the Cajun Navy was launching boats on the exit ramps. That didn't work. And they drove through the neighborhood, going over these bridges, not knowing if they're going to drive in the creek or not. Terribly dangerous. Finally got it within a half mile where that truck was, and the water was up to the windshield on that Penske truck, about 6 feet. They couldn't go any further. They parked in a convenience store, and the weight of the water was so strong, it took the ice machine and floated it away. The water was over Junior's head, but Anthony got up. He knew where the truck was from the GPS system. And he's wading very carefully through the water, trying to make sure he doesn't trip over an undulation or a curb. The street lights are still on, and he's trying to get a path to go out there and come back. He finally gets the truck, and there's nobody in the truck now. He's really panicked. He throws caution to the wind, starts almost running back through the water, trying to get back to the truck, find Junior, and find the people. As he's rushing through the dirty water, he promptly steps in a manhole. No time to take a breath. The vortex of water sucks him down, and he's heading to Galveston Bay. Instinctively, he sticks out his very long arms and catches himself, fights his way up, gets a breath of air, and the water sucks him in again. He had these shorts on, stuck his legs out against the concrete, ripped all the skin off both of his legs, got out. His girlfriend, wife to be, is there at that furniture store with me. They're going to get married in 3 months. She's frantically calling Anthony every 2 minutes, and Junior, they want to answer the phone. And she has the premonition that he too is drowned. And the tension at that furniture store is so thick you can cut it with a knife, in addition to having all these people wandering around aimlessly, shell-shocked. But Anthony gets back to the truck, and he finds Junior by this time from the water had receded, and they went around to the truck, and they found the truck right there on the feeder road of I-10 in Wallaceville. This giant freeway, I-10 with 10 lanes, is totally closed because of the water. They looked across the freeway, there was a truck there with a boat launch on the back. They waded across the freeway and got to that truck and asked the lady, did you know what happened to people in that truck over there? She said, yeah, my husband picked them up in his boat. Now it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it's raining very heavily. It's very hot, very humid outside. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and this little girl, she's about 7 years old. She's Hispanic. She comes to the front door with her parents and another guy who I think was her uncle. She's the only one out of the 4 that spoke a word of English. And she's crying, and she's hot, she's wet, she's traumatized. They waded all the way up there a couple miles in that dirty water on the feeder road. And she's hot and crying outside. She opens the door. We had the air conditioning in that furniture store cranked down to about 65 degrees because 250 people were sleeping everywhere. And now she's not only hot and cold and traumatized and crying, but she's freezing because of the cold air, and she's totally wet. And her little teeth are chattering. She stands there crying for a couple of minutes, getting up nerve to come talk to me. She comes up and says to me, can we stay here tonight? And she stayed there. And hundreds did. And over the next several days, we had all these reporters from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and CNN, and CBS, and Fox News, and BBC and Australian Broadcasting. And they all came in and they all asked me the same question. They said, how could you possibly let these total strangers into your fancy furniture store and let them sleep on your mattresses and your sofas and eat on your dining room table, sleep on your recliners? How could you possibly do that? My answer was, how could I not? I have role models in my life. Like my wonderful parents who are both in heaven, I hope, and my beloved brother George, who is in heaven, I hope, and George and Barbara Bush. I did what I'd been taught to do. Hurricane Harvey was the worst of times for Southeast Texas. All the way from Rockport to Houston to Beaumont, 50 to 70 inches of rain. Enough rain to fuel Niagara Falls for 21 days. 500,000 cars, I said 500,000 cars in Harris County total. Hundreds of thousands of homes, anywhere from 1 foot to 12 feet of dirty water. It was the worst of times. But it was also the best of times, because for one brief moment in time, we all came together. And we forgot about right-wing politics or left-wing politics or centrist politics, and all we did for that one brief, beautiful moment in time was we cared about people. And that's what President Bush and Mrs. Bush, God rest her soul, have done their entire life. They cared about people. I'm so honored to be here tonight as we honor the legacy of George and Barbara Bush. It was the best time for us because we were able to help people. And they were all worried about the furniture. And they all asked me, how about the furniture? We had about 250 people sleep at both places for 3 nights, about 1,500 nights they slept there. Out of those 1,500 nights they slept there, only 3 of them peed on the mattress. Not bad. Less than the national average at the Marriott, I'm told. Then they all asked me a couple months later, what did you do with that furniture those people sat on? I said, what the hell do you think I did with it? It had tail. So, I'm in that furniture store 2 weeks after the hurricane on a Sunday. There's people everywhere trying to buy mattresses because some of their mattresses got ruined. Very, very busy, and we had a line of about 1,000 people outside in the parking lot getting cleaning supplies to knock out their houses and food and water and shelter stuff. The outpouring of the American people was beyond belief. They brought truckloads of supplies from New York, from California, from Ohio, from Pennsylvania, from all over the country, and especially from Texas. So that Sunday afternoon, this woman walks in and she's wearing a yellow Mormon Tabernacle volunteer vest. And she says, can I bring Gifford Nielsen and 10 or 12 men and women, senior elders of the Mormon Church, are down here helping organize the volunteer effort. Can I bring them by here to see you, to see how we can help you in about an hour? And I said, sure, and they came out. Gifford Nielsen played football at BYU, played football for the Houston Oilers, and for 20 years he was a sports broadcaster on the CBS affiliate there in Houston, so I knew him very well. So they came out there, all wearing their Mormon Tabernacle volunteer vests on. And I asked them how many volunteers did they have on the ground in Houston. And they said within 10 days, we had 6,000 volunteers on the ground from all across the world. They stayed in other Mormon houses. There's one neighborhood in northeast Houston where our store is, had 500 homes in it, one Mormon home. They went in and mucked out that Mormon's home and fed the entire neighborhood for 6 weeks, and they mucked out every house in the neighborhood. And I gave this speech to a group a couple months ago, and they said that's easy for them to do. they were brought up as Mormons. They were brought up to be givers. My reply to that is, why can't we all be brought up that way? That's the way President Bush and Mrs. Bush have taught us, these great people that we honor here tonight. And so, I received a lot of awards post-Hurricane Harvey. I didn't deserve any awards. The heroes were the firemen, the policemen, and the first responders. One police officer in Houston was riding in the back of one of those great big Army trucks. He'd been up for 96 hours. He was riding in the back of one of those Army trucks in the pelting rain. He was sound asleep in the back of the truck. The truck stopped. He jumped out and went to his duty. That's what President and Mrs. Bush have done their entire life. They served others. They answered the call of duty. I received an award from the Four Chaplains group in Houston at the Michael DeBakey VA Hospital in the Texas Medical Center. Dr. DeBakey is one of my heroes in life, as is President Bush and Mrs. Bush. I didn't deserve the award, but I went down there to get it, and I walked in, and there was a big bust of Michael DeBakey, and I could feel his presence in the room, a lifelong giver. They gave me the award, and I went back and I studied the history of the Four Chaplains. Here's how it goes. It was the evening of February 2nd, 1943. The United States Army Transport Dorchester was crowded to capacity, carrying 902 servicemen, merchant seamen, and civilian workers. Once the luxury coastal liner, the 5,649-ton vessel had been converted into an Army transport ship. The Dorchester, one of 3 ships in the SG-19 convoy, was moving steadily across the icy waters from Newfoundland toward an American base in Greenland. SG-19 was escorted by Coast Guard cutters Tampa, Ensenada, and Comanche. Hans J. Danielson, the ship's captain, was concerned and cautious. Earlier, the Tampa had detected a submarine with its sonar. Danielson knew he was in dangerous waters even before he got the alarming information. German U-boats were constantly prowling these vital sea lanes, and several ships had already been blasted and sunk. The Dorchester now only 150 miles from its destination. But the captain ordered the men to sleep in their clothing and keep life jackets on. Many soldiers sleeping deep in the ship's hold disregarded the order, causing the engine's tremendous heat. Others ignored the order because the life jackets were terribly uncomfortable. On February 3rd, at 12:55 a.m., a periscope broke through the chilly Atlantic waters. Through the crosshairs, an officer aboard the German submarine U-223 spotted the Dorchester. The U-223 approached the convoy on the surface, and after identifying and targeting the ship, he gave orders to fire the torpedoes, and a fan of 3 were fired. The one that hit was decisive and deadly, striking the starboard side of its ship far below the waterline. Captain Danielson, alarmed that the Dorchester was taking water rapidly and sinking, gave the order to abandon ship. In less than 20 minutes, the Dorchester was slipped beneath the Atlantic icy waters. Tragically, the hit had knocked out power and radio contact with the 3 escort ships. The Coast Guard cutter Comanche, however, saw the flash of the explosion and responded and rescued 97 survivors. The Coast Guard cutter Ensenada circled the Dorchester, rescuing an additional 132 survivors. The 3rd cutter, Tampa, continued on escorting the remaining 2 ships. Aboard the Dorchester, panic and chaos had set in. The blast had killed scores of men, and many more were seriously wounded. Others, stunned by the explosion, were groping in darkness. Those sleeping without clothing rushed topside where they were confronted first by a blast of icy Arctic air and then by the knowledge that death soon awaited. Men jumped from the ship into the lifeboats, overcrowded them to the point of capsizing, according to eyewitnesses. Other rafts tossed in the Atlantic floated away before the men had time to get into them. Through the pandemonium, according to those present, 4 Army chaplains brought hope and despair, and light and darkness. Those chaplains were Lieutenant George L. Fox Methodist, Lieutenant Alexander Good Jewish, John P. Washington Roman Catholic, and Clark Coley Dutch Reformed. Quickly and quietly, the 4 chaplains spread out among the soldiers. There they tried to calm the frightened, tend the wounded, and guide the disoriented towards safety. Witnesses of that terrible night remember hearing the 4 men offer prayers to the dying and encouragement to those who live, said Wyatt Fox, son of Reverend Fox. One witness, Private William P. Bittner, found himself floating in oil-smeared water surrounded by dead bodies and debris. I could hear men crying, pleading, praying, Bittner recalls. I could also hear the chaplains preaching courage. Their voices were the only thing that kept me going. Another sailor, Petty Officer John J. Mahoney, tried to re-enter his cabin, but Rabbi Good stopped him. Mahoney, concerned about the cold Arctic air, explained he had forgotten his gloves. Never mind, Rabbi Good responded. I have 2 pairs. The rabbi then gave the petty officer his own gloves. In retrospect, Mahoney realized that Rabbi Good was not conveniently carrying 2 pairs of gloves, and that the rabbi had decided not to leave the Dorchester. By this time, most of the men were topside, and the chaplains opened the storage locker and began distributing life jackets. It was then that engineer Grady Clark witnessed an astonishing sight. When there were no more life jackets in the storage room, the chaplains removed theirs and gave them to 4 frightened young men. It was the finest thing I have seen or hope to see this side of heaven, said John Ladd, another survivor who saw the chaplain's selfless act. Ladd's response is understandable. The altruistic action of the 4 chaplains constitutes one of the purest spiritual and ethical acts a person can make. When giving away their life jackets, Rabbi Good did not call out for a Jew. Father Washington did not call out for a Catholic, nor did Reverend Fox and Coley call out for Protestants. They simply gave their life jackets to the next man in line. As the ship went down, survivors in nearby rafts could see the 4 chaplains, arms linked, braced against the slanting deck. Their voices could also be heard offering prayers. Of the 902 men above the United States Army transport Dorchester, 672 died, leaving 230 survivors. When the news reached American shores, the nation was stunned by the magnitude of the tragedy and the heroic conduct of the 4 chaplains. Valor is a gift, Carl Sandburg once said. Valor is a gift. Those having it never know for sure whether they have it until the test comes. The test came to Southeast Texas August 24, 25, 26, 2017. The citizens of Southeast Texas band together and passed the test. President and Mrs. Bush have passed the test for 90 years. They're role models to all of us. They are some of the finest people ever walked the earth. Never once did I ask President and Mrs. Bush to do a fundraiser for us or to attend an event. They always said yes. These incredibly busy people. You know what we need in this world? We need role models. We need role models like George and Barbara Bush. And so, as an entrepreneur, everything changes. Right now, the big problem at Gallery Furniture is the Amazonization of retail. People can sit home and push a button and buy a sofa, and they believe the convenience of their home is a great deal for the customers. So we have to change. One of the things I know about any institution or any business is you have to ask yourself, would the customers miss us if we were to go out of business tomorrow? I can tell you that you can by doing good, you do well. Before Hurricane Harvey happened, I was totally invisible to all millennials in Houston. I was a 67-year-old man who was totally irrelevant. After Hurricane Harvey, I can't go in any Starbucks, they don't buy coffee for me. I went to a damn drive-thru the other day and they bought the coffee. And now 90% of the customers come into that store and they say this, I'm buying because of what you did. We need role models, we need examples. We don't need the Kardashians. We need people like George and Barbara Bush that we can be proud of 24/7, 365 for 90 years. For 90 years they have served. And so what we're doing now at Gallery Furniture is, in our two big stores, we don't need as much square footage for retailing as we used to because of Amazon and Wayfair. So we're taking about 30,000 square feet of each one of those stores and turning them into community centers. We're going to teach ESL and GED and commercial driver's license and woodworking and welding and all these skills to people to help them get better jobs. I believe whether we're Democrat or Republican or centrist, we can all agree on the fact that we need more good jobs for America. And that's what we're going to do to make ourselves relevant and to make us survive in a very competitive retail world. There's a Harvard business professor named Clayton Christensen. He wrote some famous business books called The Innovator's Dilemma. He also wrote a book that says, how will your life measure up? How will your life measure up? Because his premise is, at the end of the day, when we go to meet our Maker, he won't judge us by the amount of money in our bank account. He will judge us rather by the amount of good we've done and how we have affected people's lives is better. President and Mrs. Bush passed those tests with an A+. They lived a life built for others. It's up to all of us to follow their lead. Thank you very much. I feel like a test. I'm very nervous. We'll see.
I was reading a lot of biographical information about you on the internet, which of course, as you know, everything on the internet is true.
Absolutely.
And I saw a reference to a story that Barbara Bush named you the most modest man in America. She obviously knew you very well. Could you share a story?
You know, President and Mrs. Bush were just the greatest people. I'll never forget, we sponsored the Davis Cup tennis tournament at my wife and I's tennis club. And they invited us and all those tennis players to their home. And, you know, what a spectacular occasion for anybody to go to the home of George and Barbara Bush. And they couldn't have been more gracious and so nice to myself and my wife and all those players. Just so genuine. And And I remember one time, and David will remember this, we did I went to President Bush after the tsunami in Southeast Asia. Said we wanted to raise money. He said, how can I help? And so we did this Bush-Clinton tsunami fund relief thing. And we ended up raising like $15 million. And President and Mrs. Bush teamed up with President Clinton, who, that shows how gracious they were. They teamed up with Bill Clinton. And of course, we had the finale for all the people that had raised all the money. We had a big event at the tennis club, but it was in May, and it was hot. And we had a pregame deal for some people that had given $100,000. President Mr. Bush got there early, shook everybody's hands, and of course, President Clinton had a history of being late for these type of things, so he ended up being quite late, and it was really hot out there, and we stayed out there for 3 hours, and they just trooped it through. They couldn't have been better. Went, shook everybody's hands, took pictures, and the one thing I'll always remember about George and Barbara Bush, whether it was the janitor or the $1 million donor, they treated everybody like kings and queens, just one.
So, I want to backtrack a bit to your comments earlier about the response to Hurricane Harvey. And you had thought you had been prepared, and then Mother Nature gave you more than you were looking for. In hindsight, is there any one thing you really wish you'd done differently before the storm started?
Probably had more people sleeping at the store so we could have responded better, but you know, how do you prepare for the 70-inch rain once in 1,000 years? We responded pretty quick, and the whole city responded, and the city band together. Interestingly enough, we had these 3 people there in the Salvation Army, like a food truck, and they were giving out wild water for 3 weeks afterwards. And the youngest person out of those 3 celebrated her 82nd birthday at Gallery Furnace. They've been going to natural disasters in this country for the last 50 years. And you know what they said? They said, out of every natural disaster we've ever been to, there's nobody but nobody who is more resilient, more giving, and more caring than the people of Texas. It reminded me of a quote by Winston Churchill. He said, what type of people do they think we are? We're Texans and we take care of each other.
It was inspiring to a lot of folks. I haven't seen similar kinds of stories coming out of the most recent hurricane. Why do you suppose that is?
I haven't kept up with it. I don't watch television. I just make commercials. So
We could probably hire you to teach diplomacy if you like.
you know, my brother taught me something. Anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Well, let's change gears then. You have an impressive history of making a difference for people, philanthropy, and you supported a variety of causes. How do you decide which causes to support?
You know, a lot of them are personal. I am proud to support the Bush School because myself and my dear wife love and admiration for President and Mrs. Bush. We're proud to support this school and have. And my beloved nephew went to the school and he's still in the Army at the Pentagon. So we support a lot of causes that are near and dear to us. I had a lot of mini strokes in my life, so I helped get a mobile stroke unit in Houston that has a CAT scan machine inside of it. So when you have a stroke, they bring the CAT scan machine to the person's home and diagnose it real quick and end the stroke instantaneously. And my daughter has a mental illness, so we've done a lot of work in the mental illness field and helping to eliminate the stigma of mental illness. And both my father and brother died of congestive heart failure, and I do a lot of things that you know, are near and dear to me. I think most people in philanthropy like to support causes they know something about.
So I have a number of students here in the audience, so students from the Mays School of Business and students from the Bush School of Government. Do you have any advice for either of those groups?
Yeah, you know, I became a millionaire in the racehorse business. The only problem is I started out as a billionaire. That's But there's this woman named Temple Grant, and she has severe autism and Asperger's. But her mother never gave up on her. And she's also has done more for animal welfare than almost anybody in history. History goes back a long time. So she's consulting with me on helping me with these racehorses. And I do Facebook Live with her talking about animal husbandry and also about autism. Millions of people watch that Facebook Live. But one of the things she says is that you should try a lot of different jobs. Don't get stuck in one cubbyhole. Try 8 or 10 different jobs. If you don't like one, move to another, and find something that you finally sink your teeth in, you know, and then you love the job. And if you love the job, you never have to work a day in your life. You look forward to it. Too many people get stuck in these dead-end jobs. And so when she was 15 years old and fully autistic and not good socially, her mother told her, you're going to your aunt's ranch in Arizona. You can go for 2 weeks or you can go for the whole summer. That was the choice, 2 weeks or the whole summer. She said, I guess I'll take the whole summer. She went over there and she fell in love with cattle and animal husbandry, and it changed her life. So I think we've got to expose people to different stuff. And the more stuff you expose them to, finally they find something, I'm really good at this, you know, and then the life becomes your passion.
So what would you say is your current passion? Is it the same passion throughout your career, or have things shifted?
My current passion is making payroll every week. Other than that, I'm really excited about this job thing. I think it really makes us relevant. It makes us consistent. I've been doing speeches in schools since 1983, and it's amazing when these people come out and they're 40 years old, so you talk to my second grade class and kind of just feel old, but they're buying furniture because of it. So I think the new deal where we've become a community center in addition to a retailer, I think that blend of capitalism and social worker will definitely work and make the store a better place and make Houston a better place. And hopefully that's a model we can get repeated across the country, because as people buy more things online, you don't need as much brick and mortar space to make it do something good with it.
How did you figure out that was the good thing you were going to do?
I read a lot constantly, and Temple also told me that I figured out there's so many homes in Houston aren't finished yet because of lack of skilled trade people. There's no plumbers, there's no electricians, there's no construction people, and that's why so many of those homes aren't figured out, and they quit teaching shop and welding and all that in school. And this kid that used to work for me went to welding school, and now he makes $50 an hour, and he's making more money than I do. And so I figured out if we can teach these trades to these people, it's going to be something good for us, and that they'll come in, and once we get them in there and we teach them a trade, and when they get it for free and they go out and make money, then we made a customer for life. We made the area better. In the area where our main store is, with a 5-mile circumference, the average income is $29,000. We're going to change that.
Thank you so much. It's pretty obvious to everybody why. We are so very pleased to present the McLane Leadership in Business Award. Mr. Jay McIngvale. Please join me.
If any of y'all need any furniture, we still do everything.
Mr. McLane, join me for the presentation of the Crystal Doohickey.
The Lord, and it says there between the lectern and her chair. I'm like, how can you see that? It's right where they are.